Hi, I'm Madhukumar Advi, a storage specialist solution architect here at AWS. In this video, I will be demonstrating on the push method of transferring data between S3 buckets across AWS accounts using AWS DataSync. In this scenario, we will copy data from a source account to a destination account with the source account controlling the data transfer process. AWS DataSync is a secure online service that automates and accelerates moving data between other cloud providers, on-premises, and AWS storage services. I have two browser windows open. The first one that you see on the screen is a normal mode where my source account is open. Note that this browser tab is named as source. This is where my source S3 bucket exists with a sample dataset. And another browser window is in incognito mode where my destination AWS account is open, which has an empty S3 bucket. The first step in this process would be to validate an IAM user or a role who interacts with the DataSync service has necessary permissions. In this case, as you see, I have an IAM user called source, and this IAM user should have an IAM policy called AWS DataSync full access. This lets you create the DataSync location and tasks. In the next step, we are going to create two IAM roles. Those are used by the DataSync service to access S3 buckets. One for the source and one for the destination. Click on Create Role and choose the custom trust policy and replace the existing policy with the one that contains DataSync service as the trusted service principal. Click Next. We are going to attach a custom policy, so we are not going to select any of the policies here. Click Next. And then provide the role name as the DataSync source location role. And then click on Create Role. Now that the IAM role is created successfully, click on View Role. And under Permission Policies, click on Add Permission and select Create Inline Policy. Under Policy Editor, click on JSON and replace the existing policy with a IAM policy that grants a read-only permission or a read-write permission to the source bucket. In this case, I'll be choosing a read-only policy. Click Next. Then provide the policy name as the source location role policy. Click on Create Policy. Now that the first IAM role is created and attached with the policy, make a note of the IAM role name. Now let's repeat the steps by creating a second IAM role. Click on Custom Trust Policy. Replace the default Custom Trust Policy with a policy which grants DataSync service principal a permission. And then click on Next. Click Next. Provide the role name as DataSync destination location role and then click Create Role. Once the role is created, click on View Role, and this is where we are going to attach the permission. So click on Add Permission and then click on Create Inline Policy. Select the JSON option and then replace it with the IAM policy which has a permission to read and write from the destination S3 bucket. Then click on Next and then provide the policy name and then click on Create Policy. Once this is done, let's make a note of the second IAM role ARN. In the next step, we are going to configure the destination S3 bucket policy with the permissions to allow DataSync service role. Click on Edit Bucket Policy and then enter the bucket policy as shown on the screen. This policy grants DataSync destination location role with a permission to read and write to this destination S3 bucket. Once this is done, click on Save Changes. Since this is a push method, we are going to go ahead and validate the object ownership settings on the bucket. Make sure this object ownership setting is set to ACL disabled. On the newer buckets, it is by default set to be disabled. However, if it is an older bucket, you have to make sure you set it to ACL's disabled. This way, whenever a DataSync service writes the data to S3 bucket, it will be owned by the destination account itself. Now that the required permissions are configured, let's go ahead and navigate to the DataSync service console on the source account and then click on locations. First, we're going to create a source location. Click on create location and then choose the location type from the drop down as Amazon S3 and browse and select the appropriate S3 bucket. In this case, it's going to be DataSync demo source bucket. And then search for the source location IAM role that you have made a note of earlier. You can also choose to auto-generate the IAM role if you have not created the one earlier. Then click on create location. Now that the source location is created, we're going to create the destination location. Because the destination S3 bucket is in a different AWS account, we're going to use the AWS CLI to create the destination location. I'm going to use Cloud Shell in this case. And then I'm going to paste the AWS DataSync create location S3 API command, which is going to create the destination location for you. As you see, this command has the destination S3 bucket ARN and the IAM role that we created for destination S3 bucket location. Once we hit enter, the location is created and it has given the location ARN as the response. Let's go ahead and validate the same thing on the console. Click on refresh. There you go. Now we can see the destination location is also created. Now that we have both the source and destination locations are created, let's go ahead and create the DataSync task. Click on tasks and then click on create task. For the source location options, choose an existing location and from the drop down select the existing location that we have created just now. Then click on next. Do the same thing for the destination location as well. Once this is done, click on next and under task mode you can choose either basic or enhanced mode. In this case I'm choosing enhanced mode for a better performance and scalability. Once this is done, leave all the task settings as default and then click on create task. Once the task is created successfully, you should be able to start the task from the start option and then start with defaults. Once the task is started successfully, you can monitor the task execution under Task History tab. Within a couple of moments, you should be able to see the task will complete successfully and copy the data to a destination S3 bucket. You can also monitor the status under Overview tab. Now that the task has successfully completed, let's go ahead and validate our destination bucket. Let's navigate to the destination account and click on the S3 bucket and then click on refresh. There you go. Now we can see the data that was present in the source S3 bucket has been successfully copied to the destination S3 bucket. Here is a quick recap of all the steps that we have followed to copy the data between Amazon S3 buckets across AWS accounts in the same region using push method. You can also follow the similar steps in the reverse order to pull the data from account A to account B as well. And here are the steps for the pull method. With that, thank you everyone for watching this video and happy cloud computing.